Hello and welcome back to Life with Danni Duncan. Thank you so much for showing up. Now, I know my content lately has been a little bit cancer heavy, but with bowel cancer being up 260% in people aged 25 to 45, we just have to keep talking about it. For me and my 4 kids, I just can't have them at the same risk of disease as me. I also know that the awareness that I'm spreading is massive and the stories coming out of it are just as important. If I can save a couple of lives from having these conversations, I'm actually okay about it. It's part of my story and my purpose now. And I'm having some epic conversations lately about how we can reduce the risk and really focus on what we can control while the health industry slowly makes some changes. So on that note, I've got Nick Dugmore here, or Dougie, from Stoke Wines. He also has bowel cancer and his story has over 1.3 million views on Instagram. It caught my attention because although I talk about all the chemicals we exposed to in the 90s around food, one contributing factor is the one that we're going to talk today with Nick about, or Dougie about. So welcome, Dougie.
Thank you. Nice to be here. And you're right, we need to raise awareness. I've actually got a polyp count between all the people that I've made aware, and people message me and they say, hey, I went and got a colonoscopy because of you. And the biggest one, I think it's up to nearly 100 polyps have been removed from friends. And one of them had 17 polyps and some of them were cancerous. So it's amazing that they got onto it early. So yeah, I think this is really important. If people don't want cancer chat, they can switch off. That's their choice.
They can totally switch off. You know what? I'm actually jealous. I hadn't thought about that because I have so many people that have told me, yeah, they've got colonoscopies, polyps. Unfortunately, I have had a couple come back. I only say unfortunately with cancer. But again, their messaging was like, Danni, if it wasn't for you, I wouldn't have gone. And now it's stage 2, rather than potentially stage 4, right? So,
And the difference between that, I think stage 2, I think you've got a 95% chance of long-term survival.
Yeah.
And my chance of long-term survival or survival longer than 5 years was 76%.
Yeah.
According to all these figures, I took that as 100%.
Totally.
Really very positive from the start.
Well, this is what I did. I went, well, if it's 76% of the average person and I am not average, then let's just, do you know what I mean? That means it's 100% because I'm not average.
Yeah, exactly. You've got a choice to make at that point when you get diagnosed, and it's really hard, but you can become a victim of it, or you can choose a path where you're going to go and be the absolute best version of yourself. I took cancer eventually, the first, what it's like when you get diagnosed. It is so traumatic.
Yeah.
There is so much emotion flowing and fear. You are completely swamped with fear.
Yeah.
And then after that, you sort of settle into being a cancer patient. I remember somebody at the start telling me, oh, you'll be a pro after not too long. And then also I, slowly realized that I am the cancer. I was my cancer and I love me, which meant I love my cancer. And it just changed everything for me.
Yeah.
And I started to resonate on a very different level to what I was. And I was saying to you before we started recording, releasing fear. My advice to any cancer patient is to do the psycho-emotional work first, and continuously. You've got to keep that up. But releasing fear is one of the most important steps in curing yourself.
Yeah, I definitely feel that. I feel that exactly what you said, like at the start. I feel like for me, I went very quickly into solutions mode. I had that initial fear, scared emotion. And then very quickly I was like, right, what the fuck are we doing? Like,
you switched into fight or flight very quickly.
It was literally, I was like, I'm fighting. Like I got my armor on and I was like, let's go, Do you want to just talk everyone through just your start of your original diagnosis of getting bowel cancer, your symptoms, and then what prompted you to get checked, just so we can, I suppose, frame that a little bit?
Yeah, no worries. I was diagnosed with stage 3 bowel cancer at the age of 39. I'm now 41. So it was August 2023 when I got diagnosed. And I had a 5-centimeter tumor in my upper rectum that had gone through the bowel wall and was in 3 lymph nodes, visibly from the scans was in 3 lymph nodes. So it's classified stage 3. And the symptoms that I was having, I'd already booked in to go and see somebody, but there was blood in my poo, definitely.
Yeah.
And at some days there was actually streaks of blood on the poo. So it was very obvious. But then I went and I had a test and it came back negative.
Interesting.
So it was tough, but I have a really good doctor who is young, and he said, if your symptoms persist for another week, though, we'll book you in. So just give us a call. And in that week, I got so constipated that I couldn't go to the toilet. And that was because the tumor was stopping me from going to the toilet.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
went and had the colonoscopy, and that's when they found it. In hindsight, though, there were way more symptoms, except, and I think we do this as humans, we just normalize so many things. I've learned so much about what it is to be human since diagnosis, because I'm slowing down and I'm thinking about it on a much deeper level. And I really just wasn't listening to my body at all. But there's also, we normalize them. So, I was sleeping in the evenings. I didn't have energy and I was sleeping on the couch. I'd fall asleep while watching TV, which I've
Yeah.
never done in my whole life. But, the excuse for that is I've got 2 young kids. We're not sleeping heaps, blah, blah, blah. And then I had some stomach pain, which I had lower back pain for a long time. And so
Mm.
I just kind of related that to the lower back pain. So I normalized that occasional stomach pain. Yeah, I was just finding excuses for normalizing not feeling the way that I am. I was also 12 kilos heavier than what I am. I was drinking probably half a bottle to a bottle of wine 5 or 6 nights a week,
Wow.
I think. So I
Yeah.
was definitely drinking way too much.
It's interesting you say that. I do feel like again, like, you said when you get cancer, you go into this like research and I don't know, absorbing all this information. And from what I've learned is the two biggest, I feel like, risk factor groups of people are postpartum mums, because we put things down like I put it down. I had a new baby. Like, of course I was tired. I was bloated. Well, I just had my fourth baby. Maybe that was normal. And I was 39 too. People were saying maybe it's perimenopause, Danny. Like, so you make up these excuses as to why you feel like this. And I feel like men can be quite stoic. You guys, I feel like men are always like, oh, we're fine. It's nothing, a bit like that. And especially if you're a parent, right? You go, oh, I'm tired. I've got kids, it's normal. And I think that those two groups of people are at most risk, because we just have so many reasons potentially for feeling like that, rather than going, actually, is this normal for me? I love that you said that earlier, just circling back, that you said, you have a good doctor who's young, who then said if your symptoms are still there in a week, to go for a colonoscopy. Because unfortunately, some of the stories I've heard lately are some of our older doctors basically saying, oh, you're too young to have cancer. It's not that. I literally had 5 stories last week of people telling me that and getting turned away. And I think it's really important to advocate for our own health and be like, no, something's not okay, and pushing for that. Did you want a colonoscopy? Were you like, yes, please, actually, I want this checked?
No, well, he even said, though, there's no chance it's going to be bowel cancer.
Wow.
And I didn't think anything of it as well. And he was really surprised. But we're just lucky. We love him. He's very thorough. Yeah, he doesn't cut corners, and he just books these things in if he needs. But I think about doctors, and there's a lot of older, grumpier doctors. And I wonder how they keep up with modern medicine. Are they reading research papers? Are they staying up to date with the
Mm.
latest knowledge and the latest treatments and the latest statistics and things? And the answer probably is no, because they don't have the time
No.
and they're nearing retirement. So, when anybody in any industry nears retirement, if they're not like almost on the spectrum passionate about it, then
Yeah.
they're going to switch off from that, and they're just going to practice what they've known for a long, long time.
Mm.
And then also learning a lot about the medical industry. It's risky for them to be making some moves and putting pressure on the medical system. Like if we were to book in the amount of colonoscopies that we really need,
Mm.
they're going to be in a huge amount of trouble. Pressure on the system. In the cancer world at the moment, ivermectin and fenbendazole, these two deworming tablets, are all the rage, and people are curing themselves of cancers that most people would not be able to cure themselves because of these drugs. But
Yeah.
they're already on the market and they're extremely cheap. And in conventional medicine, our oncologists and things, they can't recommend it yet because it hasn't gone mainstream. So I
Mm.
said to my bowel surgeon the other day, what about ivermectin and fenbendazole? I'm thinking I'm going to do it. He said, well, I just need to see the research before we do anything. And the research is there. There's hundreds of peer-reviewed medical papers, but there's not enough for it to go mainstream. And then at the end of the day, whoever's funding these pharmaceuticals, it's a business for them. They want to see at the end of it, once those pharmaceuticals hit the market, that they're going to be making money, which is
Yeah.
unfortunately the way that the system works, the capitalist system works. But it makes it really tough for us, because then I have to go and make the decision myself, do the research, and make the decision. And if it's the wrong one, then it's on me. If it's the wrong one and it's on the doctor, he's going to lose his job.
Yeah, and I had this conversation with my surgeon the other day because I was like, we need colonoscopies from age, 25, really, right? I said, 'cause
Mm,
before I got bowel cancer, I knew two people that had had bowel cancer in my life, right? One was my friend's dad's when he was in his 70s, right? And the other one was a friend who actually died last year. But from what I knew about her, very unhealthy lifestyle, overweight. And that was, in my head, I was like, well, maybe that was her contributing factors, right? When I got bowel cancer and I realized the amount of young people this was affecting, I was like, how come this wasn't even close to my radar? Like, why wasn't even, for example, as a woman, we get a pap smear at 18 and we know to check for cervical cancer every few years. We know that. Like,
mm,
we get literally it drilled into us when we're like teenagers. How come, if it's the biggest killer of people from 25 to 45, why didn't I think of it? Dougie, even when I got sent for the colonoscopy, I didn't even think that this was an option. I was like,
mm.
I've got an ulcer in my stomach or something. I was like, something wasn't even on my radar. And then
I
when I
was
found out that
hoping for Crohn's disease.
literally, I was hoping to be celiac. Chris got diagnosed with celiac 2 weeks before I got diagnosed with cancer. And I was like, I'm a celiac too. We're going to have a house full of celiacs. Then when I found out that the free bowel, they've just dropped the age to 45. But then when I found out that the free screening kit was from 50, I was like, that makes zero sense. And then when you're saying about keeping up to date with research, this is what I'm like. I'm like,
Mm,
how is the government pushing this out when the research is saying that it's killing people from 25 to 45, but you're not giving anyone a test till they're 50? That doesn't
mm.
actually make sense.
Yeah, I feel like they just need to change it from 25 to 35, and then people will either be diagnosed or they'll understand if they have polyps or not. And if they have
Mm,
polyps, then they can, after the 35 mark, then they can book themselves in. And if they
yeah,
don't book themselves in, then it's on them at least. Because at
totally.
the moment, I think it's 60% of those tests that are sent out don't get used. So I think younger people
Mm.
perhaps who are a little more open-minded are happy to talk about having things put in their bum. Maybe they should trial it for 2 years and see what percentage of 25 to 35-year-olds actually go and get it done.
Totally. But what
Oh,
you said though, you said your test came back negative, right? You did one?
yeah, that's right. So they're not, and yeah, I had a 5 centimeter tumor that was bleeding right
And it was
there.
still
So,
negative.
yeah, but there is another test. I've joined a bowel cancer research team at the Flinders Hospital, and it's
Mm,
fascinating what they're doing. And there are blood tests that they've developed that will tell you if you've got cancer, but it
yeah.
hasn't been rolled out yet.
Those other treatments as well, I feel like when I went to my chemotherapy appointment, it's similar to you. It's like, yes, you have to do chemotherapy and this is the only option. And it's like,
Yeah.
surely there has to be something else, you know, you
Mm.
know,
Yeah, it's
especially in
pretty scary.
2025.
My bowel surgeon told me that they've got a bit of a recipe for bowel cancer, which has been working reasonably well for 15 years. So they're sticking with that. Although my surgeon, felt really lucky to get him because he practices chemotherapy, then radiotherapy, then surgery, whereas a lot of people do surgery first.
Yeah, I had
And I know,
surgery.
yeah, and I know people who have, like, I couldn't imagine going through chemotherapy after having surgery. That's
Mm,
like with a physical injury, it would have just made it next level.
mm.
But yeah, I was the 100th patient that he had done that with, and he got a 55% success rate of a full clinical response, meaning that the tumor was completely gone and you didn't have to do surgery.
Oh,
And so
wow.
I said to him, if you're getting such good numbers on this, oh, and if the tumor came back, it would come back normally in the area where the primary tumor was, and then they do surgery straight away.
Right.
And I said, so why isn't everybody practicing this? And he said, oh, he thinks it's because of surgeons' egos. And also when you do surgery, the hospital's making money and the
Mm,
surgeons are making money. And if I was a surgeon of anything, I think it would be pretty exciting to do surgery.
yeah, interesting though, because in my head, I just wanted it out of me. I was like, "Get it out,"
Yeah.
and I suppose when they got it out with the surrounding like 17 lymph nodes and the blood vessels, and that's where they found it in my blood vessels going to my lymph nodes.
Right.
So, yeah, like, in my head, I'm like, "Just get it out, like, get it out
No,
of
oh,
me."
yeah. I was exactly the same. My first thoughts were, "Get this thing out of me." There's so much fear there, you just want it gone. But they
Yeah.
talk about bowel cancer. I've had a few friends diagnosed with different cancers, as breast cancer, these ones, And they said, I'm just going to try doing my own thing for 6 weeks and see how the cancer responds. And then I'm going to go down the conventional path. But if you're committing to doing it alternatively or naturally, then your cancer probably took 5 to 10 years to develop.
Mm.
So I think you need to do it for like nothing's going to happen in
Yeah.
6 weeks.
No.
You don't even, when I changed to a keto diet, I didn't even switch into ketosis for 6 weeks.
Mm.
And then my body started to respond and my body just changed completely.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's like cancer develops for a long time. I think chronic illness requires chronic health as a complementary way of
Yeah.
dealing with it.
I suppose from what I do, that's like anything really, it's like people, I mean, I talk about it all the time. People want quick fixes and quick results from doing things quickly. Well, I always say like, even, it took your child, I mean, it's taken my children, what? My 4-year-olds can't tie their shoelaces. They've been trying for a year and a half. It takes you like four years to tie your shoelaces. You can't expect to like change a habit. Do you know what I mean? In your adult in 6 weeks. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, but
People want to.
the modern day quick fix though is just to get Velcro shoes.
Oh, totally. Especially for us parents,
And
right?
and the modern day quick fix for cancer is chemotherapy and radiotherapy or surgery. But for
Mm.
me, I took my cancer as a message from my body. Eventually, I really started to listen, and I don't believe that Mother Nature makes mistakes, and I am Mother Nature. And
Mm.
when I started thinking like that, I saw my cancer as a gift from my body to say, hey, you're doing it wrong. You need to change yourself biologically and you need to change your life. Because I didn't mention before, but I think, we'll talk about glyphosate
Yeah.
but I believe that cancer is death by 1,000 cuts. But some cuts, particularly at the moment in the last 30 years, are much
Mm.
bigger than others. And this psycho-emotional one is a really big cut. So I don't know how you were mentally, but for me, when I got diagnosed, for 10 years, I'd been focusing on regional development of Kangaroo Island as a wine region. I was so excited about that. And I wanted to be known as the best winemaker on the planet, My ego was so big that I was so driven to be sort of famous in the wine world. And so I was constantly living in the future and I was never present. I was thinking about what I needed to do next and growing our winery and making our wines better and farming in a better way and doing all these things that kept me
Yeah.
so driven. I was still so excited to wake up in the morning, but I was never present there in my life and knowing that the only reality is right now, and right now is absolutely beautiful.
You're literally preaching to the choir. That was literally me. Like I've never been a stressy person, but I was definitely like doing things because I wanted, and I said and Chris and I both in the last year with both of our things going on have really taken that step back and gone, unless you're present now, it doesn't matter. Like you have to, like,
Mm.
these kids, they're only this size once, these experiences are now. And if cancer's done anything, it's made us go, it could all fucking end tomorrow. And then what's the point? And so 100%, I think, I suppose initially I got quite frustrated and angry because I have for the last 11 to 12 years now, I've been focused on my health. I studied nutrition for that reason. I moved my body out of love for it rather than hate. I've had a history of eating disorders and, that kind of stuff in my past. And so it was all about me in these last 12 years, like being healthy. And so when I got cancer, I was like, what the hell? Like, why? And then I realized actually, emotionally, mentally, what was I doing to myself? Was this actually contributing? And this stress that I'm putting my body under. And I think you just mentioned it before, like those 1,000 cuts. And again, we'll talk about glyphosate. But, I was going to say, what was your upbringing like? The 90s, I think we just got absolutely hit every way by all these different things. And when things get bashed enough and then you add stress into it and not mentally there, I think it's just a, recipe for disaster.
Yeah, and culturally, we're always striving to be something that we're not. You go and get educated and you try and get a better job and get a better car and constantly improving yourself or move forward. And then when you
Mm.
stop and you think about it, you can't move forward and you can't be something else. You can only be, full
Yeah.
stop.
Yeah.
So when you actually realize, well, for me, when I realized that and started practicing gratitude and just the ability to be present it changed my life completely. And I was sending so much love to my cancer that everything, like I was really calm through chemo and radio and everything else, just along for this really interesting ride. And
Yeah.
I still remember walking up to the servo and just looking at Mother Nature thinking, holy shit, this is
Yeah.
incredible.
Yeah.
And then also looking at all the human creation, so human concept things, thinking, holy shit, look at that. That's
Mm.
classic. Like
Yeah.
just everything that us humans have created to then sculpt what we believe the concept of being human is.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it sort of eventually, after now 2 years, has also helped to sculpt the way that I treat health. Because I think
Yeah.
that health for us is a concept. One thing I've learned about the medical industry is they're just scratching the surface of what it truly means to be human.
Mm.
And
Mm.
and we don't really know what health is. I don't think we even really know what food is.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
to understand any of these things, you need to understand anything in life. I think you need to practically become a historian of that topic.
Yeah.
And that's when I really started to understand glyphosate and what that's doing to us. But then
Yeah.
to understand diet and to understand what it is to be human, you just kind of look back through evolution and say, well, what has changed? Like for us with bowel cancer, what has changed in the last 30 years? Because it's gone up by 296% or whatever it is in 30 years.
Yeah.
So we just need to look at those things that have changed so quickly.
And I agree, like, the gratitude is just immense. I know, I don't know what day it was, but it would have been not long after I got diagnosed, and I stepped outside and I was like, "Look how fucking blue that sky is." I was like, "It's so beautiful." Like, I just had never looked at it like that before.
Yeah.
And now whenever I go for a walk, like, I was smelling someone's roses the other day outside their house, and I saw them looking outside their window, and they were like, I'm sure they were like, "What is she?" Yeah, I was like, I'm sure they're like, "What's she doing?" And I was literally smelling the roses, but, I was like, I just have so much more appreciation for everything. Like, I hear my kids laugh and I literally wanna cry. It's so beautiful, like, I just think when we're in that space of just go, go, go and trying, like you said, trying to be something else. And it's funny, like, and this is a bit off topic, but before I got cancer, my sole purpose was to try and grow my page and grow my business. And yes, to help more people, because that's what I've always been about. But the focus was that, right? When I got diagnosed with cancer, I completely just was like, you know what? I'm just going to do whatever the fuck I want on my page. I'm going to talk about what I want. I'm going to show up how I want. And guess what? It's grown anyway because I've just turned up
Yeah,
for
so
me,
much.
stopped
Yeah, well,
caring.
before cancer, my Instagram I was never on it myself. And now it's pretty much just straight selfie videos of me, which is weird. But the reason I can do it now, and I mean this in the nicest possible way, but I just don't give a fuck what anybody thinks.
Yep.
And your opinion of me is none of my business. And you also, I think, project your feelings onto others. If I believe that that person is judging me, then really I'm judging me.
Me,
'Cause
totally.
how am I meant to know what that person is thinking if they
Yeah.
looked at me in a funny way? Maybe they've just broken up with their partner and they're having a shitty day and they glanced
Totally.
at me, and then I get offended by it. There's all these, or like, you get into the shower and have a hypothetical argument with your boss about something that's going on at work, and that achieves nothing. You probably chat to your boss the next day and they're like, "Oh, thanks so much for bringing that up. Yeah, well, let's figure that out."
Yeah.
No, but in the shower, when you're having that hypothetical argument, your cortisol levels are going up, you're getting
Yep.
stressed out, and then
Yep.
you go to bed with higher levels of cortisol, and then you don't sleep well, and your body, the
Yep.
death by 1,000 cuts, that's some smaller cuts that are happening. But yeah, but a big
Totally.
one is all those psycho-emotional things that are happening
Yeah.
in our lives.
Yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, I don't know. I say to people now, just to heal properly, a combination of the conventional, because it's very scary not to, and we are in a golden age of cancer research, and there
Mm.
are all these new things coming out.
So talk to me. You're a winemaker. So, I know there's a lot of things out there of people being like alcohol causes cancer and blah, 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 blah. So first of all, I think you have changed or you do farm organically now. So that's something.
We
But
always we always have.
always have. Cool. So talk to me. Have you had any pushback around getting cancer and making wine?
Yeah, I have for sure. Yeah, it's funny, but people are just not thinking about it on the level, or they're not understanding glyphosate, which for people
Mm.
listening, I believe that glyphosate was one of those big cuts of those 1,000 cuts.
Yep.
And I believe that it contributed massively to my cancer, and it is the active ingredient in the herbicide Roundup. So everybody
Yeah.
knows Roundup. People use it in their
Yeah.
backyard and stuff all the time.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, a lot of people have commented saying, elephant in the room about the alcohol. And alcohol
Mm,
was a cut for me for sure, and it does cause cancer, and it's not good for you, and all those things. But I'm
mm.
not pinning you down and forcing it down your throat.
No. No.
It's the consumer's choice, and I think addressing alcohol, like making wine labels, put all these little new things, like we have to put "Don't drink while you're pregnant" on the back of our labels. But I
Yeah.
think all these things are a band-aid fix to far deeper cultural and social issues. Often alcohol is not the problem for these people. It's actually the solution to something far bigger going on in their lives. So
Yeah.
I've always, when we got into farming, when we got into viticulture, I just wanted to farm in a way that doesn't affect whether you drink our wines or not. The way that we farm does not affect your life.
Because we had a chat off before we recorded around, alcohol and it being a carcinogen. And it's funny, since I've been gotten cancer as well, people are like, oh, you're going to stop drinking now, Danny. Now, so everyone knows I have one, maybe two glasses of wine a week. And when I say I pour myself 100 ml glasses, and so sometimes that's 200 mils a week. Very rarely would I have any more than that. Yes, I 100% did in my 20s and early 30s. Yes. But, there's a lot of fear mongering around things that give you cancer and that, alcohol will give you cancer. Well, if that was the case, everyone that drank alcohol will have cancer, right? So we know it's a carcinogen and it has links to cancer. And we're not denying that as well. And it's the quantity and consistency. But you said something really beautiful before we recorded around where alcohol can actually, like we were talking about quantity and consistency of having something. And what did you say about the other things that go together with having a glass of wine will actually help us? What was it you were saying?
Yeah, well, in the wine industry, from the side of the wine industry that I've come from, you're not really selling wine, you're selling a story. And in our industry, you learn about the history of wine, which is pretty rich. It's 10,000 years old, and over that time, wine has become a massive part of society and a massive part of many people's cultures. But the issue that we've got these days is there's a lot of alcohol out there that is disguised as wine.
Mm,
So for me, drinking wine or choosing a wine to drink is really important. And you need to choose that wine based on the intention of the producer. But yeah, when you get to know wine people, you realize how passionate they are, how much they love the land. And
yeah.
when they drink, they're choosing wine that has been made with the intention of bringing people together,
Yeah.
and it's a form of connection, which once you get sick, you realize that human connection is a massive part of the health of becoming
100%.
healthy again. But I believe in the right context, there is a difference between wine and alcohol.
Yeah, and we said earlier, like, I don't know if you've watched Secret to the Blue Zones, Live to 100 from Dan Buettner, but a lot of the cultures is having a glass of wine, but it's combined with that connection, like you said, like that human
Mm.
connection, laughing, feeling loved, like you said, releasing serotonin, dopamine, those beautiful moments. And yes, okay, the wine is bad for us, right? That part is bad. But I think when put in, and everything is quantity and consistency, but when put in a scenario where you've got all those other fabulous things going on, probably paired with some beautiful salads and vegetables and good meats or whatever it looks like,
Mm.
those things outweigh the negative impact of, a small amount of wine when you're having in that context, right?
Oh, definitely. You said before you drink 200 meals a
Mm.
week. I'm sure that you're not having it with your turkey tail mushroom and your supplements in the morning.
No.
You're probably having those glasses with your husband and your family
Yeah.
or some
Yeah.
friends when they come around, and it's a special occasion. You're feeling really good, and you're telling stories. And if your wine has a story to tell as well, it can help to
Mm.
highlight and heighten that occasion as well. It just makes it more
Yeah.
special. It's going to lower cortisol, and
Yeah.
and it's going to release dopamine and serotonin, and you're just going to
Yeah.
feel good about yourself. So yeah, but
Definitely.
that little bit of alcohol in that wine, alcohol is an ingredient of wine, and that little bit of alcohol is not good for you.
Yeah. So let's just move on to what really sparked my interest in you, and that was the glyphosate theme, because this is scary, I think, because, when you were just talking before, actually, you've even just made my brain go, whoa. Literally the other day in the supermarket, I walked past Roundup on the shelf. I even
Mm.
said to Mum, I remember you spraying Roundup on all our plants when we were kids. And Mum actually went, I actually still use it, Danny. And I was like, oh my God. And now you've just made me think, not only is it on fruits and vegetables, but yeah, it's getting sprayed on the grapes. It's going into our wine. And then my brain is now just going like this and thinking all the stuff that
Well,
it's on. So talk to me. What is glyphosate? And that's, yeah.
if it's in wine, then we've got a serious problem because it's going through the soil, through the plant, through the grapes, through fermentation, through sterile filtration, and still being present in wine. If it's in wine, then it's in most produce
Oh my
that we're
God.
churning out. Imagine what it's doing to your broccoli.
Oh my
you know.
God. So talk to us. What is
And
glyphosate?
so glyphosate is the active ingredient in Roundup, the herbicide. And it's not just Roundup. They lost the patent, I think, in 2018 or something. And there's 500 odd brands using the chemical glyphosate. But like I said before, and well, I want people actually to understand that I didn't just pick glyphosate to blame for my cancer. So when I got diagnosed and I went and saw my bowel surgeon, he told me that my tumor was 16 months in size. So that kind of gave me a starting point to start researching. And exactly 16 months before that, I was over in our vineyard and I broke out in a rash. It started on my forehead and it went to my back. And then it got so itchy, I had to get out of there. I couldn't handle it. It was so crazy. I didn't sleep for 6 nights.
Wow.
And yeah, and I went to emergency on day 4 because my face started to swell up. It was all over my face. It was in my mouth. It was in my bum. So it was internal. Yeah, and I thought, oh shit, that rash caused my cancer. And then I remembered, so I was looking up rashes and cancer and all this stuff, peer-reviewed papers on different things, but it was difficult to find much. But then I remembered the hot showers that I was having when I had this rash. And I was turning, the only relief I could get for the first 10 days was turning the shower as hot as I could possibly handle and just running it over my head and my arms and just absolutely everywhere over my body.
Yeah.
And it was the most incredible feeling I've ever had in my life.
Mm-hmm.
So then I thought, shit, what's going on when I'm having that feeling? And it turns out it's a massive release of serotonin, your feel-good hormone. And 90% of your serotonin is held in your GI tract, the mucosa or produced in your GI tract, which is where your bowel cancer is, So then I started researching what serotonin was, and serotonin is made up of 3 amino acids. So we have 21 amino acids in our body, and 9 of them are termed essential, which means our body can't produce them. We need to eat to get those amino acids. And 3 of those aromatic amino acids, essential amino acids, tryptophan, tyrosine, and phenylalanine, and they make up serotonin. And then I was thinking, well, why don't I have either excess of or lack of? And how do we get those amino acids from our nutrition? And they come from an enzymatic pathway in a plant called the shikimate pathway. That's the pathway that the herbicide disrupts. So the way that glyphosate kills a plant is by disrupting the last little amino acid in the peptide of that shikimate pathway.
Right.
And then the plant will die. And at the time, because before, saying you need to know the history of anything to understand why we're doing it and why maybe the damage is being caused. So at the time when glyphosate was released, before it was a herbicide, it was used as a chelator. It is a chelator. It was used as an industrial pipe cleaner, which means it binds up to corrosion or metal ions and it will strip them off these pipes. And the factories for those were in Mississippi, in Cancer Alley. I don't know if you've heard of Cancer Alley in America.
No.
It's pretty grim. It's like, nearly everybody who lives in these areas, I don't know if it's pretty desolate now, but everybody was getting cancer. A lot of people on their 3rd, 4th, 5th cancers because of the amount of herbicides and different chemicals that were used in this industrial area.
Right.
But at the time, in the 70s when it was released, it was believed that us humans didn't have the shikimate pathway within our bodies. And that's why glyphosate got so popular so quickly, is because they said that humans and animals did not have this pathway. But since the 1970s, gut science has come so far. And particularly in the last 20 years, it has advanced so much. And we now know that we are more bacteria and fungi than we are human. And of that bacteria and fungi, 54% of it use the shikimate pathway within it.
Wow.
So if we're ingesting glyphosate kills anything that has the shikimate pathway, and 54% of our gut bacteria and fungi have the shikimate pathway. And those, then you research further and say, what do this bacteria and fungi, what does it do for us? And it helps to, my science is average around this. It's been like learning a whole new language for the last 2
Yeah.
years. So a lot of it I understand, but some of it I can't really articulate very well. But these amino acids, they help to develop, through the shikimate pathway, they help to develop hormones and proteins, neurotransmitters. They help to hold together the protein structure of your stomach lining. So all the little epithelial cells in your stomach lining, they help to
Yeah.
hold them together, which is
Mhm.
your first barrier to the outside world.
Yeah.
Glyphosate disrupts that first and foremost. It creates leaky gut. And now they're relating, over 90% of chronic illnesses initially to leaky gut.
Mm.
As if you think about it, our GI tract is really kind of on the outside of our body. It's exposed to everything that goes through what
Thank
we
you.
breathe, what we eat.
Yeah.
And if we've got leaky gut, because there's a lot of talk about microplastics at the moment, which definitely are a big
Yeah.
problem. But glyphosate, being one of those big cuts, of those 1,000 cuts, is allowing microplastics to enter into our body and get to places where it
Yeah.
isn't. And at the moment, we're all having micro doses of glyphosate constantly from the day we're born. They've found it in breast milk and sperm and people's brains. They've found it everywhere.
This is my whole point, though. This is my whole point when it comes to things like preservatives and additives in our food and emulsifiers, right? Because like we
Mm.
talked about just earlier, like for example, okay, it might be in a microdose in breast milk, or it might be in a microdose in, whatever, Weet-Bix, right? Whatever. And so
Mm.
it's okay. But then if we're having multiple different sources of things, that safe dosage, I call it like same as preservatives. Yes, people go, oh, it's just a little bit in my Weet-Bix. Well, then hang on, but then what, the muesli bar you have in the morning, and then the sprayed berries you're having at afternoon tea, and then the
Yeah.
next minute you're not having a micro dose anymore, you know?
Yeah, it's all adding up. It's those 1,000 cuts, and then you've got your moisturizer and your sun cream and your toothpaste
Mm,
and your this and your that, and a little,
yeah.
it even does cellular damage when you breathe in the fumes when you're filling up your petrol tank.
Yeah.
Yeah, but our immune systems should be equipped to deal with that stuff, and they
Yeah.
are normally, but now the world is becoming increasingly toxic, and, if your immune system is operating slightly slower than what the toxicity levels are, then, it's gonna catch up with you, and your chances of getting some kind of disease are much higher.
Yeah. Well, that's where stress comes in. That's why that's sort of my theory around, you've got these things that our immune systems are trying so hard to fight against, all these toxins, and radiation's another one that was brought in the 90s, really, that we've been the first generation to be exposed to all those things plus extra radiation with our phones,
For
things like
sure.
that, microwaves, all those sorts of things.
Yeah.
And then all it takes is your immune system to be down because of a stressful moment in your life or running on high cortisol all the time to then it not be able to hold up that barrier as well, right? And then that's when you're exposed to things like
That's
this.
right, yeah. The perfect storm doesn't have to be so perfect anymore, and that's
Mhm.
evident by the number of chronic illnesses that are on the rise. The other day was a teenager diagnosed with bowel cancer, which is normally a 7-year-old man's disease.
Mm.
There are children getting adult cancers, but glyphosate is a really tough conversation to have because modern agriculture has come to rely on it.
Yeah,
So we
that's
need
scary.
to It is scary, and it's the most scary for our farmers because at the moment, farmers are not getting much respect. Like in Australia alone, in 20 years, we've gone from 206,000 farms down to 114,000 farms. So we've lost nearly 100,000 farms in
Yeah.
20 years. And this is because the farmer is not earning much on the dollar anymore. And there's a whole lot of networks for that produce to get to the supermarket. So, like I explained with the wine industry before, people are growing for quantity rather than
Yeah.
quality. But farmers are in a tough spot because if they decide to farm organically or farm regeneratively, they believe that there's going to be a lot more risk involved. There's also social pressure. If you see your neighbor with a heap of weeds, people are going to think that, oh, there's going to be pathogens there and they're going to jump over to my farm. When in
Yeah.
fact, a paddock full of weeds and biodiversity, as you know, like biodiversity in your
Mhm.
gut, that's protection.
Yeah.
Glyphosate is now patented by Bayer Monsanto as an antibiotic. So we're spraying an antibiotic all over planet Earth, and we are killing life. And now it's starting to impact us, but we're not acknowledging it because of the social and cultural changes that would have to happen. Like this is massive change, and it's fucking scary. And farmers are going to need huge support from us consumers and from government.
Yeah. So I always try and focus on the controllables, right? Because what can I control and what, like you said before, like having a glass of wine and having some alcohol and that being carcinogen is a choice that we make. But eating, I mean, we all have to eat, right? We have to eat. And, I know I like to go to the market and get my stuff, but that stuff's still sprayed, right? What can we control? Like what can we do to reduce the amount of glyphosate that we're getting into our bodies? Anything?
Yeah, well, definitely buying organic, because you're going to be supporting the farmers that are practicing that way anyway. And it will encourage more farmers to take the plunge and start farming that way. But what we can do on a home level is just, rather than spraying, just pull your weeds out, or you can use a vinegar, salt, and dish soap. Like there's a lot of alternative things that you can spray that are not going to cause cancer. They're not good for your soil health, but at least they're not going to cause cancer.
Yeah.
And then I think having the awkward conversation is a massive thing that we can do, just sharing this around, or people sharing the video that I put out there. A lot of people who messaged me didn't even know that glyphosate was a thing, and they had no idea. And I've used it. My old man used it heaps. I've used it a lot in my life, and I didn't even think anything of it.
No.
But then I see young council, kids working for the council. I saw a guy the other day, must have been 19, no mask and shorts on, and spraying this stuff in between all these little bricks that had tiny weeds in it. I think one big thing that we can actually do is to normalize weeds.
Yeah, we've got a cultural problem there.
A weed, we want it to look pretty, but I use Indiana Jones and the Lost Ark as a bit of a analogy for this, is where, when he goes into the cave and they come against the knight, up to the knight who's lived forever, and then the bad guy comes in and he has to choose from the cup to drink. The bad guy chooses the bejeweled cup with all these diamonds and things on it, and he drinks it and he disintegrates. And then Indy chooses this little clay cup and he drinks it, and that's the cup of immortality. We want our tomatoes to be absolutely perfectly round and red and all exactly the same. And when you really properly think about it, that's fucking ridiculous. How do you even achieve that? If you've ever tried to grow tomatoes or carrots, nobody can grow carrots.
No.
not the ones that you see in the supermarket.
No.
At the moment, because of our own concept of what food is, we are drinking from the bejeweled cup and we are slowly disintegrating.
Yeah.
We need to
oh my God, I
drink
love
from
that
the clay
analogy.
cup. We need to drink from the clay cup, and we need to increase our immune system.
I know. And you know what's funny? It's like at the detriment to what, and I get a lot of pushback on this subject because I'm all about as many whole foods as possible. Our kids, I don't buy any prepackaged snacks. People are like, oh, but you're not better than everyone else, Danny, because you do that. And I'm like, well, I care about I'm worried about my kids' future. I'm worried about their kids' future. Like, I don't want my kids to go through what I went through, but also once I'm gone, what does that then look like for them? Like sometimes I literally go through, Dougie, and go, why did I have kids? Like, what world am I bringing them into,
I know, but at the same time, you got to try to switch off from this stuff, because if when you do and you look around, you just realize like how beautiful this place is. And the most amazing thing I think that we have the ability to do, which nothing else really does have the ability to do, is just be aware. That is such a gift.
Yeah.
This level of intellect that we have as humans seems to be a blessing and a curse. I don't know. It's all about education and teaching them that, you can be passionate about these things, because my education to do with glyphosate has come about through a lot of research, and I've become really passionate about it. But it's all because I love life.
Yeah.
This thing is killing life.
Totally.
So that's why I'm going into bat, but I'm coming at it from a place of compassion, because I understand the difficult situation we've got ourselves into.
Yeah, it's interesting. I do believe we've had lots of negative stuff happen to our lives in the last 5-6 years, and through all of it, Chris and I both have just always just kept smiling and looking at the gratitude and the beauty of life. And it's just something I'm really proud of us for. But I have to say, each time something happens, I always ask myself, cool, why has this happened? What's going on? What is supposed to come from this, right? And when I got cancer, my initial thought was, this is fucked. Like, why me? Like, this is not fair, especially after the year we've had. And then I actually absolutely know now that I was given this to then spread awareness, to help people, to change the world, to change how we eat, to change how we look at the food, to change how we look at life. Do you know how many people, Dougie, have quit their jobs after working with me? Because I'm like, if you're fucking unhappy, leave. I've had people leave their husbands, because it's just not worth it. Like, life is here to be lived. And I think, unfortunately for you, but fortunately, this has happened to you because this is such a massive thing that you are bringing awareness to. And if you hadn't got cancer, then we wouldn't be here talking about this and the awareness wouldn't be spread. So as fucked as it is that we both got cancer, I think there are definitely lots and lots of positives that come from it.
Yeah, thanks so much. I feel like, a lot of people say anything that comes your way, there'll be a silver lining or there's, it's happened for a reason. But I'm not sure that I really believe that, but I do believe that you can find a reason. And I believe that this is my reason to get educated and to try and educate people about, I'm not going into war here. I'm not going to fight anybody on this thing. I'm just purely coming at it at a point of education. But yeah, it's a massive, I now couldn't imagine my life without cancer, which is pretty tough to say because my family went through a lot of suffering. We all went through a lot of suffering, but suffering also, learn the history again. Suffering is so evolutionary. We need it so that we can progress and blossom into something more beautiful than what we are.
Totally.
And that's going to happen. We're going through a tough period right now, but Mother Nature is not going anywhere. She has a solution for everything and she's got the time.
Yeah. Now, where is your cancer at right now? Where are you at?
When I got diagnosed again, it was I believe it came back because of a period of stress in my life where I had a bit of a business falling out with some friends. So mentally, no matter what I did, I just couldn't. I was just very emotional. And I said to my wife, I feel like my cancer is coming back.
Okay.
So I was sort of on high alert. So it's almost like I manifested it myself a little bit. And it did come back. It came back in my lungs. But I felt like something was going on. So I booked some scans in and we found it really early, which was great. So there were 4 lumps there. The biggest one was 8 millimeters. And that one has been shot with some radiotherapy.
Yeah.
And then I've got 3 others, which now with everything that I'm doing now, all these complementary cancer therapies, it's grown by 0.7 mils, which is within that's in 6 months. And that's within the user error. So it might've been just the person clicking on each side of the little tumor on the screen,
Yeah.
So I'm classified as stable, but yeah, I'm the healthiest I've ever been in my life and I feel great. And I'm just pumped to be getting this shit out there,
Good. Amazing. Well, this has been an awesome conversation. I hope everyone takes away something from it and goes and follows you. So do you want to tell everyone where to find you to keep hearing your story?
Yeah, it's just on Instagram. It's Stoke Wines. And we don't use Facebook or anything like that.
Where can we buy your wine as well?
Just go direct. Support the farmer. Send me a message on Instagram or go on our website and buy it there because that's the best way because I don't focus much on sales out in the market because I'm in the vineyard so much. We're trying to farm in an old school regenerative way. So it takes up a lot of my time and that's where I'm having the most fun too. So really our business, we're just scraping by, we're just hanging in there. The wine industry is a mess at the moment.
Yeah.
So, but if people can buy direct, it'd be massively helpful for us.
Well, thank you so much. And I'm going to continue watching your story and we'll keep everyone updated. And hopefully some small changes can happen. Hey?
Yeah, awesome. It's incredible what you're doing, Danni.
Oh,
it's so good to put yourself out there and raise some awareness. So nice work. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome.